So let's take a look at one of our problems where we're going to be doing a chi-squared test for independence. So again, when we have two variables that we're interested in, oftentimes you're going to see this where we can put it into a contingency table or a two-way table. And you can see the two variables we have here is where someone's income is and how happy they feel in life. And so this is the idea where we can think, is there some relationship here? Right? Do people who make more income or less income tend to be happier or not? Well, as we see in our graph here, you can already start trying to see a little bit of this relationship happening here, where perhaps the people that have an above average income tend to be more in the pretty happy or very happy categories, versus even though that's pretty common still in the below average income, you can definitely see a bigger piece here for the not happy people. So let's go ahead and see how we can perform this test. So as we started off our hypothesis, we see that, again, we always assume that the independence is what's happening between these two things. And so when we have independent, basically we're saying there's nothing going on here. They're not associated, right? But what we're trying to do is find some kind of evidence that they are dependent, that an association does exist. And then we can go and explore that further. So again, that method is the chi-squared test for independence. So let's see how we can do this using our chi-squared calculator on Art of Stat. So on Art of Stat, you're going to find it under the chi-squared test at the bottom. So clicking on that, you'll see it'll bring up our chi-squared test for independence calculator. It's the first one that's on here. So there's a couple options that we can use. If we have the actual observations, like the list of how what income category they are and what they said for the happiness, then we can type them in here. But again, we don't have that. We actually just have the contingency table. So this is what we're going to put into here. And so as you can see, we have income, above average, average, below average. We can type that in. The happiness level is going to be not happy, pretty happy, or very happy. And we can put in those counts based off what we saw. So taking the counts from this table that we were looking at, we'll just type them in. And we're going to ignore the totals because it'll figure out all the totals for us. So typing these in, I see that this is going to be 29, 178, 135. I have 83, 494, and 277. Then finally 104, 314, and 119. So there we get the results that's coming in. If we want to actually see this as a stacked bar chart like we saw earlier, you can just select the stacked bar chart and we get that exact chart that we were analyzing before. And of course, what is it that we are interested in is that test statistic and p-value. Now, one thing to keep in mind too, sometimes we're interested in what are those expected counts. Like if these things are independent, how many would we expect to see in each of these categories based on the total number of people we have? And so we can always turn that on using this feature right here, find the expected counts. And it'll give those numbers to us. So for example, I might see that, hey, we expect to see 42.6 people in the above average but not happy category. We actually only saw 29, so there were less people in this category than expected, and so on. But let's take our null and alternative hypotheses with the test statistic and p-value. And as we see, we're assuming independence. We're trying to find evidence of an association. We got a pretty far test statistic, 54.04. You can see in the graph, it's all the way over here on the right, which results in a p-value that's essentially zero, right? Less than 0.001. So those are the results we want to take. And now that we have that, we can write our step 4, which is our conclusion. And so for our conclusion, what are we going to say? Well, this is definitely less than our level of significance of 0.05. So we want to mention that since the p-value is less than 0.005 or 0.05. Well, this means that our observations, this table is very unlikely to be viewed if there was independence. So this must mean they are dependent. We're going to reject the null hypothesis. There is sufficient evidence to show that happiness and income level are associated.